Hi everyone and welcome. This is a short session on code snippets. Code snippets are small and also not so small reusable pieces of code. My name is Danny Wind and I've been developing applications in Delphi for a while now. During that time I've also collected my own library of code snippets and I want to share some of that knowledge with you. Oh, let's not forget, Monday 14th of February is Delphi's 27th birthday. Congratulations Delphi! The current version of Delphi, Delphi 11, is called Alexandria, after the great library of ancient times. When you start coding as a new developer, you will encounter coding challenges almost every day. Some of these may seem simple and mundane to others, but everyone's brain works differently. For every problem, there is, of course, a solution. And after you've created the code to tackle the problem, why not preserve that piece of knowledge as a code snippet? Along the way, you'll be creating your own personal library of code. And now for some code snippets rules and regulations. Well, there are no rules as far as I'm concerned. Wikipedia tells us that code snippets are a programming term for a small region of reusable source code, which is fine. But it's your code. It doesn't have to be small. You can keep it simple, of course, but you can also add a design pattern or a partial framework to your code snippets. It will mostly be one-liners. For every aha moment you'll encounter during code writing, you'll write one of these one-liners. And as you move in the future, the collection will grow naturally. Now, unless you revisit some of this code, it will probably go stale. Some design patterns go out of grace. Some code just becomes superfluous or doesn't even work anymore. It's easy to keep your library up to date if, when you reuse a snippet, you take some time to look it over and maybe refresh it with new knowledge. Snippets are your toolbox, and you want your tools to be in working order. About these tools, some of the snippets will be general knowledge, but some of them will represent your personal knowledge on a subject. If so, consider them to be intellectual property. And if you're making software for a third party, you could agree beforehand that although they may use the code you integrated freely, that this should also apply to you, that you don't lose your intellectual property. Consider adding a license to your code. MIT is the most used and most free license, but you may want to use Apache or even Creative Commons BY. That's if you want your name to stay associated to your code. Okay, I'll show you some of my code snippets. Some are pretty ancient from when I started developing, some are more recent, and I'll talk about each of these samples as I'm showing them. So let's dive into some code. Let's start with double trouble. Did you know that local variables are uninitialized in Delphi? The floating point variable that's local here is almost zero, but not quite. And then if you compare double values, did you know that they have a deviation? Floating points are an approximate value, so you need to use the same value or is zero routines to get correct value comparisons. Also, round uses Dutch rounding, so round 6.5 will be 6 instead of 7. If you want to have it round to 7, you have to use simple round. It's also known as Banker's rounding, by the way. And for min value, well, the system math min double is actually a very small, nearest to zero value, while double min value is actually the highest negative value, or largest negative value. And did you know that floating point exception handling has changed between VCL and FireMonkey? In the VCL, if you divide by 0, you get an exception, an E0 divide exception. I'll show you over here. So divide by 0, it's a 0 divide exception. That's because the FPU exception mask doesn't exclude zero divide. But in FireMonkey, the EX0 divide is actually excluded in the FPU exception mask. So if you divide by 0, you get an infinite value, which is better because it's IEEE 754 standard. You can actually set it back to VCL standard, so you get back the E0 divide, but I wouldn't do that. I would prefer to use the IEEE version. The next code snippet is Thread Slider. It's more of a demo, showing you how to use 400 background threads while not using all that much resources. And also a demo of how many threads is not necessarily a bad thing. So on the CPU here we have 1500 threads running already. And if we add 400 threads of our own software, where each thread is actually painting a square, so determining a color and it's getting painted, you can see the threads going up and down. You can actually just swap between 400 and 0, and The CPU load is quite limited, it's 90% up from 3%, so it's about 15% CPU load that you add with 400 threads. And the code itself, internally, it's using events and wait fors. And the lingering green square that you saw, that's a race condition. Next code snippet is called memory barrier, but it's actually about out of order execution due to CPU optimization. It's two threads playing ping pong, and one is handing the ping pong ball to the other. But at some point it disappears, and fail equals 1, so the ping pong ball has disappeared. That's impossible. And that's due to the fact that the CPU, although it should hand the ping pong ball after the bat has hit it, sometimes it reverses that order. So the ping pong ball actually moves before the bat hits it. So that means that the hitting of the bat and the moving of the ball is out of order. This out of order execution can bite you. And now it's time for your own code snippets. Just add one code snippet to your collection every other week, save it somewhere, refresh it when you reuse it, and expand your knowledge. I hope you enjoyed this session on code snippets. You can download the source code from my blog at www.danowind.nl. And for now, I wish you a happy Delphi birthday!